Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw, and I'm here with Tom Marchant, who's the co-founder of Black Tomato. And if you're in luxury travel, you may have encountered Black Tomato, but we're here to find out exactly what it is. And I missed him at ILTM, and so he didn't get to ILTM either this year. But we're going to talk to him about what Black Tomato is doing. It's actually approaching its 20th anniversary this year, which is hard to believe. I've known about it for a while, and we're going to find out about all that and more on Insider Travel Report. Tom, first of all, great to see you here.
Thanks for having me on, James. Delighted to be here.
Yeah, now I'm in the New York area and you're in London, but we
Yep.
wanted to talk to you a little bit about Black Tomato. First of all, tell us about how you founded Black Tomato and kind of the history of the company.
Yeah, sure. A quick potted history. I grew up the son of an entrepreneur, and so growing up, I got to sort of see the ride my father was on in terms of building and growing a business. So I was always fascinated about the idea of doing something for myself. I then was at college and met one of my co-partners, a guy called James Merritt, who had a similar upbringing, son of an entrepreneur. We both kind of fell in love with this idea of one day building a business, but wanted to build it around something we were really passionate about. I certainly don't subscribe to the idea of don't turn a passion, into a job because you'll fall out of love with it. But our view was if you can find something to work with that you're passionate about, it won't feel like a job. And when we're at college, we would, when the summers or holidays would come up between terms, we'd head off on adventures around the world. We'd work sort of bar jobs during the term time to save some money and we'd take off. And it was on these trips that the seed was planted for like maybe, doing something in this travel space would be an idea. And, subsequently after university, I was working abroad. He was, working elsewhere. And on some travels, he met our third co-founder, Matt Smith, down in Australia. And it was sort of a meeting of like minds and said, right, we'd like to work on something. We're going to do something in travel. Let's work out what that's going to be. And it was really in those days sort of saying, how can we replicate these amazing experiences? This
Right.
this word that's so common now, but in those days it wasn't talked about it in that way. And share these with other people who we think have the same level of curiosity about the world as us. So went back to our day jobs in the corporate world, but all the while doing that, we were working on the business plan for what became Black Tomato. And when we were in our kind of mid-20s, having had a few years of corporate experience under our belts, largely so we had something to fall back on if it didn't work out, because
Right.
nothing's guaranteed in the startup world. We launched the company, and we were very lucky that our philosophy, our approach to travel, the kind of trips we were doing, the way we were talking about travel, seemed to strike a chord. And we're very lucky that we started getting press pickup, people being intrigued by the company, intrigued by the name, I should add as well.
Well, what is the name? How did you come up with the name?
Yeah, so the names it's an interesting story. After I'd been working at college, I was doing an internship in London, and some kind of quirk of fate, I was asked to go and work on a project by this company in Moscow, would you believe? And what was meant to be a couple of weeks ended up being a number of months over there. And subsequently, after I'd left Russia, I was working in South Africa, and then I came back home. But we'd still take trips to Russia because we thought it was a fascinating place, and potentially it was going to be a great destination for the launch of the company to take people to. And on one of our trips, when we were there, we ended up in ironically and probably tragically, a Ukrainian restaurant in the middle of Moscow.
Oh, wow.
And and when the menu came out, on the menu there was a black tomato, which we thought was very strange. Never heard of that before, and asked the waiter, what is a black tomato? And he gave a very passionate speech about it being this rare form of tomato, but when you find it and you taste it, it gives you this rare quality
Hmm.
tasting experience. And that just struck a chord. And so our view was, when we were thinking about how we're going to name the company, something that captured our approach to travel and how we looked at the world. We said, why don't we aspire to be the black tomato of travel?
Hmm.
So offering these rare quality experiences. And we really, when we started, we bootstrapped this company. We weren't sat there with huge advertising or marketing budgets. So we also thought, as well as it being something that reflects our journey and a point of view, it was also a name that was probably going to provoke some intrigue, at least, because it certainly doesn't say greattripsabroad.com. And so
Yeah.
it gave us something to kind of attach to, and some talkability. But that's only that only takes you so far. So I mean, you sort of need to build a business around it.
Yeah. So now you offer basically you use the word experience, and as you correctly said, luxury has all become experiential now. And in fact, that's how I first, saw what you were doing. And in fact, I think you had some trips related to James Bond
Yeah.
that were what for me, my era that struck a chord, and I saw the things you did, and that was incredible. Are these trips for individuals, or are these for groups?
It's entirely up to the client. We're a
Right,
bespoke service, so it's all
right,
privately done. The trips we cater to a whole range. So whether it's groups of people, private individuals, families, individuals, couples, at the heart of it is, this the philosophy we have, which is about, trying to inspire people through remarkable travel experiences. And it's funny that word experience, that you mentioned. I think back in the day when we started, it wasn't nearly as, say, ubiquitous a word as it is now. I often
no,
talk about, I think now often say, you can walk into your local sort of bodega or deli and pick up a bar of candy, and it's going to tell you you're going to have the best tasting experience of your life. Everything's an experience. So whilst it's good that it's out there, I think it also presents some challenges, good challenges, to say what we need to define what an experience is, and
right.
convey that and demonstrate the power of thinking about the world through experiences rather than just long lists of destinations. When we actually launched the company, I mean, it would be terrible for SEO now, but it wasn't such a thing but 20 years ago. But we didn't have lists of destinations. All we had were experiences that were categorized according to the emotional need that you had. So whether you
That's
wanted
that's
to
that's pretty
be
cool, because
challenged
we
or,
do tend to be very destination specific sometimes. And of course, now as all the luxury conferences I've been over the years, and now the new word is transformational or something instead of experience, which is everybody wants to put a new take on it. But
yeah.
experience was something I kept hearing at, whether it was ILTMs or virtuosos, for years, and that's what everybody wants to do. But it sounds like that's how you started the company.
It really did. One of the, and we still feel strongly about this, a view that myself and my founders had was this idea that a lot of people don't actually know where they want to go, but they know how they want to feel.
Right,
And that was certainly how we traveled. So we were trying to just kind of connect the dots between how we felt and we knew other people felt. And rather than presenting someone, which used to be the case with a website or even a brochure with a long list of destinations and a list of things you could do, what was important was to say, well, actually, how's that going to make you feel? And that's
right.
what ties into this word of how you're going to feel through the experience you're having. So I love the fact it's become such a, much more widely adopted word. And I think that is far more reflective of how people approach travel. Well, certainly our customers and people that work at Black Tomato. So it's been a really interesting sort of journey to see how this word has sort of evolved in terms of its adoption. But at the heart of it is a real pursuit of finding interesting things to do.
Now, I say that I said the question. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, really, you can go any destination, or do you have specific destinations,
Yeah,
in mind?
I mean, look, we're global in terms of our coverage, and we've managed to build up a really fantastic network of on the ground fixers and our team of travel experts who've traveled and lived and operated all over the world.
Right.
So all the key continents we are in and we have a strong presence in. Obviously, there are certain places we won't go to or can do, and I think a big part of how we've always set out our stall, if you like, is just to be honest about whether we can do something or not. I remember, in those early days when you get requests saying, "Can you go here?" and you'd want to say yes because you'd be trying to get some business, but ultimately you knew if it didn't know it or it wasn't right, then in the long run, that's not going to help you. So
Right.
we kind of prided ourselves on being able to say no and being honest about what we could do. But as we built the business and grown it, so our ability to kind of deliver experiences around the world has increased. And now, I say we've got a very strong global coverage. Certainly certain areas we do more into just because of trends and client passions. But yeah, we're pretty global.
Now, when you were going abroad and developing these trips, are you working with on the ground operators in these different locations, or are you basically going in and developing all this on your own?
It's a real mix. So we have incredible partners around the world, that we've been working with for years. But when we started the company, obviously, we didn't come from a travel background. We didn't have a Rolodeck of contacts of how to open the world. So we were out there kind of researching, testing, refining, and through that building our relationships with our fixers and our DMCs. But ultimately, all the trips that we develop come from ourselves. So we have a really
Right.
strong product team. Everyone that works at Black Tomato is part of our research program. So we've got lots of people out on the road all the time looking at opportunities. But what's been a really nice development over the years of doing this is that our partners in places know the kind of things that we're interested in or things we're looking for. So we also get a constant stream of information coming back to us saying, look, guys, we've seen
Right.
this, we think this is right for you. So as our company and brand has become better known and our point of view and what interests us has become more clearly articulated, so our ability to kind of create things, for ourselves and push and challenge our partners to create really interesting things has increased. And that's been great. So it's we look at trends the whole time, both in terms of what we're seeing people being interested in, but also things we're just observing and thinking this is emerging or it hasn't emerged yet, but we think there's going to be a big interest in this type of travel or this approach to travel. Let's go out and dig into it and see if there's something that we can bring to the table to bring it to life. And that's certainly one of the most enjoyable parts of the job.
Yeah, well, sir, you must have seen over 20 years that you've been delivering experiences, but what the kind of experiences people want maybe have become more elaborate. And of course, we all talk about local experiences, interacting with locals. What has changed in the last 20 years in terms of the kind of experiences people want?
I think I think there was a shift, at the start when it's almost like the way travel was almost compartmentalized. So it was like, this is the kind of stuff you do. And say if you're talking about luxury, which is the end of the where we operate, luxury at the start was often tied to solely like the type of property you're in, or the transport you were taking, or the F&B that you'd be having. And whilst this is still a very key part of that in there, I think what's become more interesting is people's understanding of what actually makes an interesting or luxury experience. And that's where you do start tying into things that are about access or the uniqueness, or rarity. And that actually is not always dictated by price. I think, traditionally people say, well, luxury is always super expensive. And of course it skews that way. But I remember when we started the company, one of the first experiences that, if you like, put us on the map was in Iceland, which is like it's kind of almost like our spirit animal of the destination in terms of where we, built so much business.
Right.
And we went out there early and we found this experience where you could go and dive between the tectonic plates, on the
Ah,
Silfra Coast just outside Reykjavik. And ultimately it's this fissure between the American and the European tectonic plates. And allegedly, I don't think it's just marketing, but the clearest water in the world, and you get a dry suit on and you can snorkel, you can scuba dive down, you can see for meters and meters, and you can put one hand on either plate and effectively be like holding the world apart. Now this kind of experience in itself was, back in the day, I mean, it was, it's tens of euros. It might be more now. Certainly not something you'd say that comes at a luxury price, but the uniqueness of it, the difference of it, and the ability to kind of tell stories and create memories of that was something that really struck a chord and still does. In fact, on Thursday we're taking our whole company off to Iceland for an annual trip, and I think a lot of
wow.
people will be doing that experience again. So I think it's more like just these types of experiences, people's awareness of what you can do in terms of getting to a place or seeing another side of the place, that shifted. And I think that's come because of a lot of things in terms of the proliferation of information about this. I think, people finding out what others have been doing and it dialing up people's levels of curiosity. And I also talk about, you can actually spend the same amount as perhaps staying in a gold tap, 6-star hotel somewhere, but
Yeah.
spend the same amount going out into the depths of the Mongolian steppe and sleeping on a Hessian mat under the stars, but where you can read by starlight and starlight will cast a shadow, and that might be the same price, but the uniqueness and the luxury of because of that uniqueness of that experience is something else. So I think there's been this shift from a type of approach to luxury to one that's more embracing the tapestry of weird and wonderful and unique experiences, but ultimately create these memories that is really the true luxury that I think we all look to hang on to.
Absolutely, and I think as we've seen that increasingly over the years. Now, I understand, sort of just maybe celebrating your 20th anniversary, you're actually launching a new series of trips. You're calling it the Pursuit of Feeling, I believe.
Yes.
It's celebrating the inspiring role that travel plays. Can you talk a little bit about that? What should people know about that program?
Yeah, so I mean, it speaks to the insight I shared a little earlier about when we started the company. It was about this. You don't know where you want to go. You know how you want to feel, and that this idea about feelings and the emotional impact that travel brings has almost like been the red thread to the company as we've grown. It's always been about how's that going to make someone feel, and how can you look to kind of feel emotionally fulfilled. So we've been working on this for about 18 months, maybe 2 years, but it's basically building a platform within Black Tomato that celebrates this notion of traveling in search of feeling, hence the pursuit of feelings. And so for that platform, we've come up with a number of different offerings. So we've got 100 experiences that have been curated according to different feeling categories, different emotional needs they provide you, which you can, it's beautifully interactive. You can shift through and play. We've built out 5 new incredible trips that are like the cornerstone of each one of these emotional categories. And then also, I think, which is really interesting, is we built what we're calling the feelings engine. And what the feelings engine is taking the very best of some cutting edge AI, which we're very interesting technology. We've been looking at that for a long time. My belief is we are a human-led business. We're always going to be people first. That's the business we're in. But if we can find smart ways of using technology to enhance those human skills and give more time for our humans to work magic, then all the better. So what the feelings engine is using AI, but which is interrogating our own data, our trips, our insight information that's been gathered over 20 years. And you can go into this box and start having a conversation talking about what feelings you're looking to find on your travel, and it will start chatting back to you and pulling from our database and ideas. And so you can start basically searching according to what feeling you're looking for and getting suggestions and then putting in touch with a
Wow.
travel expert to deliver those. So we're really excited about that. That's going to be I think yeah, I don't think anyone. I mean, I don't. I think I read extensively, but I haven't seen anyone create something like this yet. But it also really, I think, speaks to who we're about and celebrates this idea of looking for feelings, and also celebrates the best of technology, but the human insight. So like I say, the information the AI is interrogating is all ours. This is stuff we've created and curated. It's not just going out and grabbing stuff from the World Wide Web.
Yeah, well,
It's
AI is
stuff
really dependent on what you put into it,
this
and
is
that,
it, right?
yeah.
So yeah. So and then to wrap it all up, we're also launching our first podcast actually, which is
Hmm.
where we are interviewing kind of a range of different people from industries, from travel to music to fashion, art, food, talking to them about when they've gone traveling in search of feelings and what's happened and how that shaped their lives. So it's a labor of love personally, because I sort of, my whole makeup is about kind of trying to find the best feelings when you travel. And yeah, we hope that people enjoy what we've created. And yeah, the team have been doing brilliant stuff working on it. It'll be launching in the middle of February.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like very inspirational stuff that was going to get people thinking about what they want to do when they
I hope
travel.
so.
Now, family travel, as you mentioned before, really has been a big part of Black Tomato's business.
Mhm.
How does all that storytelling and imagination shape the design of Black Tomato's family travel experiences?
Yeah, I mean, it's, ultimately, I mean, I think every brand says it, so apologies for the cliche, but we really do believe in the power of telling stories, and I think we are a company made up of families. There's lots of parents, lots of children, and, at its heart, it's like, how can we create these magical trips for families? And we see the power of having great travel experiences and the impact it has on families. So, there's a number of different sort of family travel services we offer, and one that springs to mind that we really enjoyed putting together is a service called Take Me on a Story,
Hmm.
and that came out of COVID actually. So we've long been huge
Something
advocates.
good out of COVID, I
Well,
guess.
exactly. We had to get something right from those dark days, but we've been long advocates of the power of literature and art and basically other cultural facets to kind of connect to travel, inspire travel. I definitely don't put travel in a silo. It's like everything relates to it. And so as COVID was arriving, we realized all was in full flow. Um, we realized that, around the world there were thousands, millions of kind of houses where parents were reading bedtime stories to children. Often they were kind of acting as this a really strong form of escapism. And we couldn't travel, but my gosh, we wish we could. And so I think it was like, how can we kind of almost give them something to believe in, something to dream in? And so we pulled together, we went out and found half a dozen more classic children's literature novels and turned those stories into immersive trips that they could be taken and
Wow.
and then marketed them. And so when it was lots of crossing fingers, and we didn't know when, but basically saying when the world reopens, um, let's go do these kind of trips. And so it was a really, we really enjoyed it. And actually, we had such a great response and booked lots of these trips, and because it gave something for them to believe that was coming. So that's been a great one, and the outcomes and the feedback from that for all the families been really special. But again, I feel, as the father of two young daughters, probably my greatest joy doing what I do now is like, taking them off on travels and showing them the world, and when we could kind of create a platform like that to speak to the families and see them off coming out of COVID and having these great trips, it was it's definitely one of the highlights of this journey to date.
Absolutely, and not just Harry Potter stories, right?
Not just Harry Potter, not just Harry Potter stories. Yeah, it was a much discussed selection process. But the nice thing is also there's just so many great stories out there. So it's we launched it, but we add to it. We launched end of last year the new Hercules Adventures out in the Greek islands, which is great.
Right.
I love we have one which is about Journey to the Center of the Earth, which you do out over in
Oh,
Iceland, and
Jules Verne and stuff
it's
like that. Yeah.
yeah, all that. So and and again, it's sort of I partly it's I remember those days, growing up having those stories read to me and just being sort of sat there wide eyed, just it's probably that stuff that kind of just inspired me to ultimately end up in this industry. But it's really nice. It's a really nice way of bringing travel into children's lives.
Yeah. Now you are very experience focused, but what are some of the destinations that you have on the radar for this year, especially the ones that Black Tomato features? I mean, this year and
Yeah,
next. What are where are you going?
yeah. There's always this time of year, always looking at where's bubbling up, where's new. I mean, couple that are standing out we're seeing is it's funny given all the conversation in the media at the moment. One is Greenland, and there's this new flight from Newark to Nuuk,
Yeah,
which
I know
is
that flight.
in
Yeah.
June. That flight, and look, like I said, we've been long-standing advocates and champions of Iceland. We've also done trips to Greenland over the years, and it's sort of beginning to, there's a little bit more infrastructure's coming in there. We've got a fantastic people we work with over there. We've done a lot of research trips over there last year, and some of the adventures to be had over there are fantastic. So Greenland, we're excited about. A European spot that I weirdly, for someone growing up in the UK, I'd long overlooked is Slovenia.
Oh, beautiful
I
country. Yeah.
what a country. So I mean, embarrassed to say, I went there for the first time only last summer, and I just fell in love with it. I spent most of the trip going, I can't believe I just haven't got here. I mean, I've been to every country that's bordered it, and it's one of those things that I think we sort of just skip past. But then when you realize that it's is actually a little piece of all of the countries that borders it in one place,
Yeah.
and
Well, in the old days, you called it a less expensive Switzerland, but that's
this is it, right?
yeah.
And so everything there, just not the landscapes, but the wine regions, the food, and some of the adventures we had there. I had a long weekend there, and it was one of the best trips I've had in years. And actually, I think our sales to Slovenia. So we've been selling to Slovenia for a while, but they tripled last year, and it's going to continue. So Slovenia, we're very um, excited about, and I think it's going to have a. I mean, it's always had a moment, but I think this one it seems to be that place that people have just almost said, "I'll get round to it," but there's something else that
Yeah,
seems more
no, I
interesting.
know what you're saying. I mean, I've been in Croatia a lot and only Slovenia once, and I really want to go back. But these things where you don't end up going back and discovering them. Some of my travel advisor friends had a big conference in Slovenia this past year, and they really loved it. So,
Yeah, no, I think in fact yes, some of my team were out on that one as well actually. So they no loved it, and then the other one is Okinawa. So we've
oh,
been
really?
doing.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
we've been doing Japan extensively in great depth for many, many years. It's certainly one of our strongest destinations in terms of our knowledge, our ability, what we do. And I think you got not just, and there's certain things that influence certain things coming up. I know you've got the new Rosewood opening, but I think it's also just people love Japan, but like to start wanting to see more beyond just the classic cities, and with the beaches down there and the blues and angles. So we're starting to see that come on more. So there's a sort of three spread around the world, but yeah, it's gonna
Those
be
are all
interesting.
interesting places, and it sounds like you're looking at exploring a lot of great places now.
Yeah.
What are some of the key lessons you've learned over the past 20 years in growing the business and into what it is today?
Um, I think one of the first things we did when we started the company was we kind of just established values, right, that we wanted to kind of live by and operate by. And and I think those values, we only have three values in the company. It's about being thoughtful, humble, and curious. And that's in not just our behavior with each other, but how we work with our clients and our partners. And they've really kept us on the straight and narrow. So I think, I'm always like, even though it might have seemed fairly sort of, over the top, when there's three of you working, in a spare bedroom to start saying, let's map out our values. But actually doing that has really, I think, given us the foundation that's allowed us to grow and do the things we're doing. And so I'm such an advocate of that. And, everyone that comes through to Black Tomato really believes in that. We recruit really stringently against them. I'd actually say it's probably the most important part of the recruitment process. If someone's having an interview, arguably technically they're good enough, but actually it's about, do they embody those? So those are things I've learned and every day appreciate the importance of them. I think the other thing is that I love talking about is how you cope with adversity and how you look for basically my view is every time there's adversity there's also opportunity, and
Sure.
it's how you choose to embrace that. There's a great book that two guys I know wrote some years ago called A Beautiful Constraint, where they took examples from companies and great brands where they've been challenged or they were in a difficult position, but out of that difficult position they saw opportunity and they iterated and their business came out stronger. And I think our world of travel is full of constraint and challenge. We're at the behest of so many external factors that we can't control, whether it's weather, geopolitics, currencies, and so it's
Sure.
how you adapt to those. And I remember, sure you do. I remember the Iceland ash cloud, the volcano eruption in 2009, I
Oh
think. And I
yeah.
remember the time when we sort of look to the skies and go, well, there's no planes, no one's going anywhere. And at that moment, it was like, well, what's this going to do to our business? But what we did then, we scrambled and actually we suddenly just overnight pulled together all these road trips that people in those days we were more Europe, more UK and Europe customer based. We're primarily US now, but we scrambled and pulled together all these European road trips people could take. It didn't require them getting on planes, and actually we managed to come out of that with this incredible new product range. I think we actually matched the sales that we would have done in that period,
Sure.
even if we'd had that. And so it's just things like that that we really encourage as a culture in the company. Like if you see something that's a challenge, don't let the head drop. See where the opportunity lies. And I think that's quite an entrepreneurial outlook as well. I think if you're going to get into this, you need to think that way. But I do think when you see it, when there's a problem, don't just see it as a problem, see it as where the opportunity is. So I think those are things that
Well,
some, and then
there's the
last,
old phrase, making lemons from lemonade, as they say.
this is it, right? And then the last thing I think, which is just a really, I think, joyful thing to talk about in our industry is, and everyone says it about world and business, but I think it's no truer than in travel. It's just the power of relationships and
Right.
actually investing in those, for all the technology, which does do fantastic things. Ultimately, travel is a people business. If for me, travel's always been about, connecting cultures. You travel to meet people, to talk to people, to learn about from people. And I think that approach in our company about the relationships we build with partners around the world and our clients, the communities we work with, they just put you in really good stead. And it's there's all the cliches about being kind to people to come back, but
Yeah.
it's just true. And
No, kindness has really had a resurgence in the last year. I've been to more conferences where we discussed kindness than
yeah.
anything else. It's amazing, which is great. I mean, there's nothing. It's very encouraging, and it makes you feel good about everyone and about the industry itself.
Yeah, it really is. And so, it's, and I feel as kind of passionate and as enthused for this industry and what we're doing as I did, on those first days where, it's kind of felt like you against the world, but you had that fire burning and it feels that today. But also it's the reason you feel like that is because of the great relationships you build and the stuff you get to create and do for clients because of those relationships. So it's, yeah, that's the thing that I always go back to. It's like, it's the people that actually make this world turn. And that's a
Well,
great thing.
I always said if you have travel people running the world, we probably have fewer wars and everything else because everybody just wants to create, a world where we can enjoy experiences no matter where we are.
Exactly that. Exactly that. Here, here.
Yeah. Now, what are you most excited about for Black Tomato now that you're turning 20? What's the next 20
Yeah.
years going to bring? And
Yeah, the
we don't
crystal
even look
ball.
at that, but and how do
Yeah,
you see it
I'm aware.
evolving? Yeah.
So it's, I mean, it's interesting. I think I think we talked a little bit about some of the, the platforms we're using, how we're going to kind of, harness the best technology and human power to kind of keep pushing forward and iterate and create new ways of seeing the world. I think for us, I'm just excited because there's this idea that the world might have been discovered, but it still hasn't been fully explored. And so I just constantly seeing there's new opportunities to introduce not just parts of the world, but ways of experiencing the world to people, which makes a big difference. I think the other thing that I kind of excited about is kind of the new generations of travelers coming through and actually understanding how um, we could be relevant to them. I think we've seen a lot of parents who come up and with younger children coming through and understanding how we can showcase the world to them. And we're increasingly seeing younger children or teenagers playing a key role in kind of family decision making when it comes to traveling. And so understanding what matters to them. And a lot of that is driven, something we've done for a long time anyway, but our focus on real like regenerative travel. That's something
Right.
when we started the company, we were always about working with communities. That's the stuff we loved. When James, one of my co-founders, and I were traveling, we spent time in the Philippines and time, in the Pantanal in Brazil, and we get to know these communities and we'd see this power that travel had of being a force for good. It was bringing much needed revenues in, it was fostering understanding and connecting cultures. And I think we're seeing actually the younger, generations coming through where that means even more to people. And so I think, we really focus on actually building in regenerative practices and experiences in everything we do. But that's only become more important. I think that's a great thing. So excited for kind of how the travel industry can embrace that and see, it's not about not going to places, it's about supporting places
Mm.
and, doing it sensitively, with great consideration. Um, but so that it brings some preservation to the world, but not just preservation, it helps places evolve and thrive and foster. And I'm excited for kind of how we can play a role in that and also introduce parts of the world to these curious younger generations coming through.
No, absolutely, and I think the younger generation is definitely look. My kids traveled the world because of what I did for the
Yeah.
last 30 some years, and now I have grandkids, and I'm just waiting for that point where they can
Yeah.
go. It may be initial trips, and I think already some of them are already traveling, even at the age of 2 or 1. And
Amazing. Amazing.
which is all that. So I'm eager to see that. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Now, where can we go out to about 128,000 travel advisors now here in the US and Canada. Where can they go get more information about Black and I'll say tomato?
Well, it's funny. I should finish saying tomato because when I lived in the States about 6 years. I was in New York for 5 years and LA for a year, and I could never really win because I'd sort of introduced it as black tomato, which someone would think was, almost quite funny. But then I'd say, okay, I'll say black tomato, and that'd be just as funny, because I'm trying to sound like American. But whether it's black tomato or black tomato, yeah, blacktomato.com is our website address. We're also Black Tomato Travel on Instagram. And you can find out way more about us there. The things I've been talking about, like Pursuit of Feelings, that will be arriving onto the website,
In February.
mid-February,
Okay,
and
well, we're
um,
looking
and there'll
for
be
that.
supported social. But yeah, you'll find us there, and it'd be great for people to come and check us out.
Fantastic. Well, the old song, you say tomato, I say tomato, but it doesn't matter. We
Indeed,
just won't call the whole thing off, but that's another.
exactly.
So anyway, Tom, great to spend some time with you, and hopefully we'll get together live in person one of these days soon.
I
Uh,
would love that.
and I know this is going to be very interesting to our viewers, many who know about the company, but maybe don't understand the origins of the company and what you're trying to focus on today. So again, thanks so much.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Thanks, Amy James.
I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.